Gentlemen, welcome back to Pillar Talk.
Wow, were we away for commercial break?
Welcome back.
Flashback.
Sponsored by Drake.
It's sponsored by Drake over my shoulder here. So Pillar Talk, just a real quick recap for what, reminding people what these are. So during the week, we generally do Inside Star Citizen, Star Citizen Live. Those shows are a little bit more about the what and the how, whereas this show's supposed to be about the why. Generally before or during a release of a upcoming patch for Star Citizen. So we have 3.9. That's the one that we're all talking about. That's hot on our lips these days. So we've got a lot of content, as you guys probably know. I don't know if you knew that. New missions, new Babbage and its 3 moons are coming, prisons, actor status system, Superior Prowler, and M50 updates, volatile cargo, and so much more. However, those features are...
What more?
Well, we'll get there. We'll get there, Chris. Hold on. So obviously, many of those features have been talked about a lot lately on some of our shows. So we kind of want to talk about other features, 3.9 features, and other tech being put in on 3.9. So I wanted to jump in first to Unified Friends List. I think Sean Tracy to kind of take us through that.
So why do a unified friends list? Well, you got to understand what unified friends list really means, because we had separate friends databases. There was a couple different ones, basically, that didn't necessarily talk to each other. So, for example, on Spectrum, I might have added Paul as a friend on Spectrum. I wouldn't necessarily
never transition into
I
game.
would never see that in the game. The same vice versa. If I added him in the game as a we call it platform friend, I wouldn't see him on Spectrum. So that was kind of the first thing to work out, and that took some back-end services to make sure that this was all talking to each other and coming from the same place. Now, on top of that, we wanted to make that all real time. So as somebody on Spectrum is adding you, we wanted to see that in the game immediately.
Whether it's on your web platform, the game, it's all the same. You can see it. It's live, and we'll continue to finish it off, which will be including and the VoIP and the FOIP communication between the platform and in game, as well as as a more rich presence. So you kind of would know, oh yeah, look, Sean's on Hurston. I can actually be in Spectrum, seeing Sean, and I can see
you can see the status.
He's in the PU right now. He's in Stanton on Hurston.
Right. So it's just stuff that honestly just needed to get worked out. And this is the inevitable, starting mark for what is really social management tools. So it's not full rich presence yet. We can't tell you exactly where in the verse they are. I can say you're online and you're in the PU. And there was one thing as well that, I really hope forward we move into, and it's something that you had mentioned a long time ago, and I think it's the orgs really want this, but it's being able to, within some sort of social panel, social control, be able to work on, the military calls it radio etiquette. Where the commander can talk to the captain can talk to the pilot, pilot can talk to, but let the orgs sort of organize that stuff. So all those controls, whether that's org alliances and all these kind of things, that's where this will all go to. It gives the players the ability. They had the ability, but an easier way to play together, which really should just be a no-brainer.
That's right.
Should just be that easy. I wish we could do it with our emails, but
of course. We could. So that's so great. So the Unified Friends list obviously is quite a cool feature coming. Plus the foundation we've got here, but persistence. Paul, we obviously did some stuff for 3.8.2, right? And so now what do we got for 3.9, and why? That's maybe a redundant question to ask what persistent does for us, but what is this?
I mean, I guess you can answer
it'll mean we go to 3.9, the stuff that you've earned so far in 3.8.2.
Exactly.
Will stay with you.
Me personally, I think it's a big step in the right direction. We can lose some in-game persistence, but we can't really lose people like their earned UEC or their items they bought and the ship they bought in-game, right?
So and hopefully we've cleaned up some of the initial glitches of it. Of course, I think we'll, if there's an exploit and someone's figured out a way to get a couple billion credits, we reserve the right to either individually edit those people's accounts, so we can just take the money or the items away from them.
Or apply a general cap.
Or just do a general cap, as Paul says, or even, occasionally we may decide, we need to just reset the database and do a general wipe, which we're going to try not to do that if possible, but you never know, because we're constantly adding sort of new structures. So we've got our next the next stage on the persistence, which Paul can probably talk about, is sort of the iCache side of it, which is more more fidelity in the persistence. So what we have right now is saying well, these are the items you have, and we're storing those in a way that can survive the patches, but we're not necessarily storing every item. We need the iCache, the foundational, that sort of micro persistence to do the physical inventory, and that's a big thing. And the other thing that opens up, which is sort of the next stage, which is sort of like bigger things, but it would be now, because we can persist anything. You can be a player or an organization. You can go down onto a, like all those beautiful shots that people share of Microtech and go, I'm going to set my homestead up here. Well, we will, with that technology there, that is what we need to be able to do that, and that is our plan. So when that's online, we're working on the aspects that would include sort of what you would call base building. So you would go there, you'd have to bring in the right resources and sort of create your little homestead or your base. So organizations or players can create their own areas of interest, and essentially will help sort of build out and populate the persistent universe as much as we on the game design side. So as we get these things on, as we get closer to that, we get closer to this sort of completely sort of dynamic universe that you can sort of go anywhere, leave things, build things, destroy things, pick things up. It's and I think when we get to that, it's going to be pretty amazing.
Exactly, and like iCache is obviously one piece of the puzzle, which is our internal high-speed database to store all that data, because obviously that's a lot of data, right? If every single bottle can be persisted and restored, but even iCache is just one piece where server OCS is a big part of that too, right? So something needs to take the data and stream it in and stream it out and restore it properly. And there's a lot of tech under the hood developed right now, which obviously people won't see, like all the features you talk about, like they come eventually, but people won't see them in 3.9 just yet. But we built a lot of the foundation yet.
Because
like the server OCS on the server, for example, when we rolled that out in 3.8, which was a big win for us. I think people out there, they were like, oh, we expected to be like better performance or whatever, while in reality it is one giant building block to like get to this full persistent universe. Right now, without other tech, which is not there yet, you don't really see the benefits yet. But for us internally, it's a real big milestone to get to exactly that vision where we can store every single object, and we can stream that area out, and we push all the changes player did to that, like we push that up into the database, and then when someone else comes back to that area, we stream it all back, and it comes back in the exact same state.
If you have the iCache and you have the server streaming, which we have, they work together, those two are necessary for the server meshing.
Oh yes, exactly.
In the server meshing, because we can have tens, hundreds of servers all communicating with each other, we just need to be able to save out any arbitrary area with its full state, which means whatever items were there or not there or whatever, to some backend, so that when we come in, we can stream it back in. Whether we stream it out on this server or this server or this server, the state is the same between all of us. And then you also should get much more of the performance impact. So yes, well, like Paul says, while you don't see the front end feature yet, getting these things in are actually quite exciting for us technically, because once they're in, that we know, okay, now that enables this next stage, and once we get these several stages in, then all of a sudden, all this great sort of dynamic, tactile, universe with state that can go there with many, many players all together in the same areas becomes possible.
And there's just so many layers of it. Yes. And we talked about it in the last Pillar Talk exactly, and it was all theoretical. But I did mention one other benefit during that last Pillar Talk that absolutely was in place, and Paul mentioned it, but the load times. The thing was just generally now default for a developer. It's about 7 gigs when it loads up. It's so light. Well, in comparison to the 45 that it was.
Before
exactly.
It was loading the entire universe. And now as a developer, you usually have one server and one client, and I'm the only client. And I see like a lot of benefit with that.
It's crazy.
The server starts up immediately.
Yes.
That's
so
awesome.
Big benefits behind the scenes for us.
Yeah, exactly. The quality of life, not just in the front end, which is this long-term thing, but all these benefits, even the developers. I think that's really cool to hear, right?
100%.
That's something that you may not notice. So with 3.9, we're focusing now on quality of life with this release.
Yeah, and quality of life can mean a lot of things as far as the player is concerned. So from my standpoint, a big focus has been, and it's mandated from Chris and Aaron, which is the player experience, the quality of life of playing the game. So there's no frustrations, there's no annoyances. They can do the things, they can play the way they want to play when they want to do it, basically, in an intuitive way. But I think it also goes down to a more technical level, which is sort of build stability.
We're definitely trying to have a stable build and try to at least be as stable as the previous build or even more stable, and we're willing to hold the build before it goes live for a little longer to get to that stage. So we'd rather not push it out and say, oh, we've made exactly this date, but it's crashing all the time.
Exactly.
And
And
so
there's always the balance between like obviously you can't spend too much time on it because that
Well,
takes
you
away
got-
development time.
and you also
But we also
diverge.
need, but it also needs to be enough time so people can actually enjoy the game and like start playing the game.
I'll tell you, and sometimes it sort of goes up and down a little bit because, for instance, server OCS, right? That actually was a massive fundamental change in the back end because, like, parts of the universe just would not exist in the server anymore, and they used to, and so we would see issues that would get with that we would never see before, and so. I think when server OCS came in at the beginning, we got a little bit, we took a little hit of the stability, but we've been fixing and moving those things on. In general, we're doing lots of little things. I think also, by the way, isn't in this 3.9 we've reduced the
the latency,
the
rewind time.
for
Yes,
the
we
rewind
have.
time for the FPS stuff.
Yes, absolutely.
So Star Marine will be much better,
it's gonna be way snappier.
and so will the PU.
And the PU, but the PU benefits and I think, when did I talk about this last on ISC? I can't remember when, but the PU benefits a tiny bit less than Arena Commander because it's really good when the server performance is perfect, right? So once we get
30 frames a second on Arena Commander, great.
everything's great. Once it gets a little cratery, to the fives or so, but we don't. I guess it does still happen sometimes when the players get all spread out. But anyways. Yes, it's in there, and yes, there is an improvement, especially for a fresh server when it's running really fast.
All right, so another thing we've been working on, player interaction system, personal inner thought improvements. Sean, do you want to tell us a little about some of this?
So, when the players are playing, very commonly they'll have to go to the button mappings. And you've seen this on live streams or anything. It hits escape, goes to the control. Okay, how do I pull out the flashlight? Okay, how do I do the dance mode? Okay, how do I
holster my weapons? Which, by the way, is my pet peeve because every time
button.
I'm like testing,
It always changes
and
too,
everyone's
right?
changed
It
the
does.
keys, and I'm like, wasn't holster used to be on J? And they was like, yeah, no, I think maybe it's R now. Oh, but you got to hold R instead of just reload. And I'm like, ah!
It is the worst when you're standing there as a director, or I'm sure as the CEO going, how do I go third person again?
Yeah, that's
All
right.
right.
That's
Yeah. Or that's an easy one.
It's like a quality of life improvement was needed on this side.
Yeah, and we used to joke that the button baron has struck, and like it just got changed. But anyways, to do away with that completely, not only having good default mappings anyways, is to be able to give the players some ability to not just remap that, but to have access to all their actions in game contextually and quickly. We had to
And
cover.
also opens up, like, for instance, like one of my pet peeves is we got all these great emotes.
Yep.
But before to access them, you had to go into chat and like slash dance or whatever.
You have
it
to
would be.
know
And that's
them.
if you know they're there.
And if you know they're there,
Right.
and then the whole idea of the personal inner thought system was to sort of open up, different stances or action, like whether you could want to be dancing or sitting down or whatever it would be, or all the various emotes, salute. And so it's just one place you can go, select it, and the concept is sort of, it's a little bit, because I've talked about this for a while, which is
I know,
the kind of the StarCraft method, right?
Yes.
Or which is you go there and you can play StarCraft with just the mouse.
Yep.
But once you start to learn the hotkeys, then you sort of become you're the pro player. You can do things much quicker.
200 actions per minute.
But what we need is just someone. All they know is the simple, FPS, WASD, running around, your interaction key, your mouse. And with that, you should be able to do everything, figure out how to use a ship, how to use weapons, how to do all these things, access all these actions. And that really was the idea of the
and that was the
personal
intent. That was the exact intent that he gave to us, which was, make playing the game a little bit easier. That's really what that comes down to, is playing that easier out of the gate.
Right.
That was the thing, because the controls haven't really changed. But your access to those is. So now you don't have to go into our key mapping stuff, which actually isn't connected to our Illustrator. You have to go into a big list and figure out where your key's going to be, or where your button's going to be.
Yeah.
Within the inner thought, within the radial, you can just assign the key right there, and it even tells you what it is. So you can adapt your style of play in situ to different shortcut commands if you want, or just kind of remap it all right there where you want it to be. So that's really nice. But then further to that, we've got shortcuts to different categories. So the idea here is that interaction system or your inner thought system is like a it's a lighter version of the mobigas. It's what you're doing in situ. So you're not in barracks preparing your weapon and taking it all apart and cleaning it and doing everything, but you're reloading it or you're changing out the ammo real quick.
And I mean, you kind of touched on it a bit, but the other thing that I think is really cool with it is the fact that you can you can bind any key to any of the action, and you can rebind dynamically right there in the personal thought. So there's no going to an option screen. Like most games, you always you go to an option screen, you do it. Here, you literally, it's kind of like
as you're doing it.
Car radio, you just hold, number one for a second, and then it's programmed to the station you're on, right? Well, this is the same thing, which is like you're going to hold the key down for a period of time, and then it binds to that action that you're highlighting in the personal thought. And so you can sort of rebind on the fly to things that you're commonly doing. So you go, oh, you know what? I'm playing with my group, and I want to be able to give them some hand signals because we're playing FPS, 100%. And I want to be able to go like this. So you can bind
that to whatever you want.
To whatever keys you want, and you can move it around. So if you don't like, for instance, me going, I hate holding R to holster, I would rather have, I don't know, like H would have probably been fine for holster, right? H holster, who knows? So I could do H, but I mean, that's I think that's a big UX usability positive for the game. And those are all the kind of little things that we need to get into the game.
That's why we're kind of taking some of the stuff into the new role where we're kind of pushing some design and some of the feature teams. Same idea that we used to do our developer tools with, just for our players, because it's like, push the player experience, make it easy for the player to play our game a little bit. And I'm really liking how that's going, and I think it's working. So yeah.
Great. All right. So attachment UI. So that was something we wanted to talk about a little bit more.
Oh yeah,
understanding what that is. We're going to segue into that.
Whoops.
I think I have to say, wowzers.
Oh,
that's a good one.
You owe me a wowzer.
Okay, give it to me. Okay. All right, ready? So speaking of boost to our user experience,
right?
Let's talk about new attachments UI. Wowzers.
There it is. Okay, now that I got my wowzer, I will describe. So the attachments UI is pretty straightforward. You go into a mode through the personal inner thought system. You can go there, or there is also a shortcut to it where your weapon comes up, and it's basically like the inspect mode that we had when you were going shopping for the weapon. So you could take a look at it, and you've got attachment points on it, and within those attachment points, you got a barrel one, you got an underbarrel one, then you got the scope one. As you mouse over each one of them, you'll get a list, or actually not a list, it's going to be a grid. So within that grid, you can select the actual options, and then you just
there'll be a grid of the things you have that would fit on that web.
And this morning, it was we went from list, and now the grid looks great. Like that works a lot better because you can kind of see what it is rather than seeing NVTAC 18X whatever. Like you know what I mean. So yeah, you can see the scopes. You can add them right on there. You can swap them out as you go, and you can also stow your weapon, which will keep those on it, with an option for later that if you pull out another weapon, you can pull that attachment off that weapon and put it on the other one.
And also, like I said, when we shift to physical inventory and just be more tactile, this is necessary interface because pulling up your character as a thing, that's like a paper doll, like an RPG paper doll thing, and we want Star Citizen to be much more sort of in situ, tactile. I see things, I interact with them. Hey, I need to put a scope on. I put a scope on.
Exactly.
And so we want to shift towards that. And so these are, like we've been talking about in this session, a lot of the stuff are building blocks towards 100%. Cooler and bigger stuff that's coming down the road. It's already kind of got benefit and it's cool, but it also enables some of the other stuff. Without these sort of functionality and features, we wouldn't be able to do some of the other stuff that we want to do. That I think ultimately will give you a pretty cool experience.
Absolutely, and it's a great point because all the features that we just talked about, like all three of these things, the unified friends, player interaction system, personal inner thought, as well as the attachments UI, it's all done through building blocks. We couldn't have done it without building blocks. And actually, there was one little thing that came out of the attachments, and when you're holding the weapon like this, it doesn't do it as much justice as it should. Like, when you have inspect mode, it was cool enough, but really the pose of it, oh man, the guns are cool. It gave me a new appreciation for the way the weapons look because you get so used to seeing them from the back. Dude, I mean, the Philadelphia.
Yeah, and also to understand the modularity of it, right?
The modularity of it.
They spend all the time to like break them up properly, to like fit all the sniper scopes properly and all the stuff, and now you can actually see that like swap in real time.
I feel bad admitting it, but I stopped seeing it so much. But then the time it was, That's
That's awesome.
Badass,
Yeah.
You know, anyways, I'm really happy with how they go.
Okay, maybe talk a little about New Babbage and the moons.
Okay.
They want to cover
Well, no,
that,
I mean,
like what's coming into this and how they were made and.
I really think an environmental site, you know, like I think some people just think, oh yeah, you know, like, it's New Babbage landing zone, what's special about that? But I think there's a lot of, it's makes Star Citizen special is that our locations, even though we use procedural tools to help sort of create at scale, they're very specifically authored. They're, you know, we have a lore, we have a universe, we have a history, and you can feel it. And so when you visit the places, you feel that. And I feel like that's kind of one of the things that makes Star Citizen special, even though we don't have a billion planets or anything yet. You do feel like when you go to Microtech, it is different than you're going to Hurston, for instance, when you go to the moons. And so and as we build tools to allow us to sort of create that stuff quicker, but still with that same level of quality, it'll be great. But I really love that, and I feel like the environment team did an amazing job on New Babbage, and it's going to be fun to go around there and, you know, get your burger or get your coffee. Or just hang out, and you know, there's another nice thing which we also showed off in ISC is that we have the ability now to sort of change our light states based on the time of day. So, you know, it's also the interior New Babbage. One of the really cool things about it is it's one of the first implementations of that, and also, you know, there's a whole area, there's a whole bar with a DJ, and at nighttime there's laser lights, and it's a party scene, and during the daytime it's a bit more of sort of a chill day drinking scene. And it's
Both equally cool.
Both equally cool. So yeah, no, it's great. The 3 moons, which I think we've also done some ISC on. You know, that's you know, they actually created those in a, you know, I think it was like 2 weeks per moon for one person. So you know, it was 3 moons. Each one took 2 weeks basically, and those look great. I mean, they're some of our best looking ones. So, and we're, you know, now that team's off doing some stuff in another star system, which is looking quite good, but that's another story.
After 3.9.
But I think there's going to be a lot of fun. Definitely keep people busy for a while. So I think that's really cool. And then, you know, I think the other big thing in 3.9, ding.
You got it. Let's hear it. That's the ending
The other
bell.
big thing in 3.9 is the prisons, which I mentioned kind of at the top, which I think is a unique consequence when you have something like a law system. And so you now end up in a prison, and you've got to do your time. And so there's a consequence to it. And we got some fun stuff, like you can potentially find a way to escape from the prison. You can also go down and sort of reduce your time spent by, you know, mining down in the caves there, and basically getting what we call merits. That will sort of reduce your time earned, you know, it's kind of a fun instrument, and it's also it's a very beginning building block of, you know, fully fleshing out sort of the lore and law enforcement, which would include bounty hunting side. So we've got a lot more stuff planned for the prison stuff going beyond this V1 implementation we've got, where, you know, we'll have the ability to have, you know, prison fights and all sorts of kind of fun stuff, you know, on the other side, the bounty hunting side, you know, we've got some stuff long term where, you know, we want you to be able to track down other players, secure them, you know, put them in your ship, take them, drop them off at the most, you know, the local advocacy office, and then that person wakes up in the prison, you know, and you'd be able to have, hopefully track them long term. And so we want you to sort of basically play that Mandalorian style. I mean, like if I watch The Mandalorian, which I'm not sure everyone in England gets to watch this yet, but Stephanie over here, it's great. But when you watch The Mandalorian, it feels very much like it's the sort of Star Citizen experience, which is, you know, it
Helps they stole the Cutlass, but whatever.
They did steal it. Yeah, it's good. Well, you know, David Hobbins is the lead concept artist on it.
I know.
He did work on, well, although he did do the Cutlass, but no, he is a great concept person. But anyway, the idea of like sort of bounty hunting and tracking someone is stuff that like we're working towards. So there's a lot. So the prison is like one of the elements that's, again, we talk about putting bits of the gameplay there, and of course we're going to build on top of it. And I think by the time we finished all this stuff, it will be really cool. And that's all the part of things like the prison system is like one element that would add towards making your piracy and bounty hunting and sort of law enforcement cycles all work. And that's one of the elements, but it still needs other stuff, and we will get there, and that's kind of our sort of plan. But it's this iterative point where we put another. It's like putting another brick in the wall, another brick in the wall, and finally, it's there.
It's always the last 10% which like brings it from
Takes 90% of the time.
some
Yeah.
that too,
yeah,
but
yeah.
it also brings it from okay, there's a base system here to actually now it's a polished feature and you can use it intuitive and it's
Well,
fun
and
to
that's
use.
part of it. I mean, I think that's the challenge is like normal game development. You wouldn't be doing this out there publicly,
Yeah.
but we, because of the nature of the way the game is, we develop it with the community out there who support us. It's a totally different way, and I actually quite enjoy it because you get sort of you get the feedback and the early feedback.
100%.
And we can also make things better and more stable longer term this way. But in the short term, it does present challenges because we always have to make sure that, for instance, we have as stable a build as possible. So we do spend a fair amount of time stabilizing a build that we may not necessarily do if we weren't having to release something every quarter. I think long term, it ends up with a better product because we're iteratively testing it and we're iteratively getting feedback. But on a short-term basis, it means that you always have to spend some time making sure you're triaging your current build and making sure it's working. So that's time that you couldn't be spending on a feature or polishing it. So, you know, if you're expecting everything to be fully polished and working brilliantly the very first time you load it up, then you know it's
Sure,
you
but
shouldn't
then,
be,
but
you shouldn't
then,
be playing
then you
Star
would have
Citizen
to
just
wait,
yet.
and then you would have to wait.
That's the
right?
flip side, yeah.
And
Yeah, well,
then
exactly. That's what I'm saying.
That's
So
the big advantage. People can like play right away and
Yeah.
like, they test out a feature, like the core development.
really close,
Not just, oh, I'm part of the last 10% where we polish everything.
Or I'm a
Like,
beta tester.
Yeah, you're part of it like from day one almost, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
that-
I mean,
think that's pretty
I
cool.
would, no, definitely. I mean, I would say a project of this scale. I mean, there's definitely some smaller indie projects where it's very like that, and that's very cool. But like a project of like this size and this scale, you know, there's not many people doing them, and the people that are the big publishers, and the big publishers would never do what we're doing because they just wouldn't want to have to be open to that much feedback.
No, 'cause they're always canceling
early.
them.
Well, it's true. Yeah, well, that's the thing is like
nobody sees that.
like we're not, you know,
These,
Star
like, 8-year projects
Citizen
getting
is
shut down.
Star Citizen is never getting cancelled. We're just going to keep working on this thing until it is the best space sim or universe simulator, I should just say, not really space sim because it's a complete universe sci-fi simulation game possible, and that's kind of cool, and it's fun to be working on it because it's I don't know, it's like I don't know, feel like Willy Wonka, and it's imagination and whatever you can dream is possible.
All right, right on. I'm motivated. Let's go.
Yeah. Well, you know,
Let's go. I got
Honestly,
stuff fixed.
I know I don't think we have anything more to add. I think that's a great wrap up. If you guys had anything else you wanted to add,
No, I
that's
think
a great
Chris
place to end.
nailed it.
Yeah, I think that, and you hear it here first. Star Citizen is never going to be canceled. Do you hear that? All right. Thank you guys very much for coming and for the Pillar Talk, and hopefully everybody enjoyed it. Well, let's get back to work.
All right.
All right,
Thanks.
thanks.
Keep it away.
That's good end.
Yeah, that wasn't.
That was a hell of an end.